All right, so as a reminder, on Friday we learned about polar graphing. R is r theta, that's the coordinate. R is the radius, that is how far you're going to go. Theta is the degrees, that's what direction you're going to go. All right, we learned that each point has many different coordinates that belong with it. So 4 pi over 4 can also be called negative 4, 5 pi over 4. Why? Because if it's a negative r, you go the opposite direction. So even though this is 5 pi over 4, negative is going to be going away from that direction. And then we learned that you can add 2 pi and subtract 2 pi. And that's where we ended on Friday. Right? Today we are going to be converting. So this next graph, we are going to convert rectangular to... I'm sorry. That's wrong. We're converting polar first. We're on the third graph at the bottom. Yep. We're going to be converting polar to rectangular coordinates. So if I give you r theta, I want you to convert it to x, y. Now we kind of did this last week with complex numbers, but instead of converting to x, y, we converted to a, b, right? It's kind of the same concept, but we are no longer going to have imaginary numbers anymore. All right, so what do we know about r theta? How do we find x and y? How do you find x if you know r theta? Isn't it r? X is cosine theta. And your y is r sine of theta. And that's how you would convert it. So your x is r cosine theta, and your y is r sine theta. Isn't that kind of like what we did last time with r cis? Except for the I. You don't have an I because we're not on the complex plane right here. We're on a regular graph. Okay? So can you plot point A at 4 pi over 6? Oh my goodness, what just happened? Please plot 4 pi over 6 and label that A. Did you plot it right there? Okay, so how do I convert that now? Just do r is cosine of pi over 6, r sine of pi over 6. What is the cosine of pi over 6? Root 3 over 2. 4. What is the sine of pi over 6? If you do not have your unit circle memorized at the top of your head, you need to be going home and brain dumping. And what does that reduce to? And that is my answer. Is this super new? No. Pretty basic, right? Edwin, write it down. This will help you with your homework, I think number 6 or number 8. How do we plot this? -4, negative pi over 4. We didn't do anything like this yet on Friday. How do we, it is on the homework. -4, negative pi over 4. Why the fourth quadrant? Okay, so these aren't X and Y though. So be careful with that. I know you see, because a negative and a negative, if it were X and Y, would be in what quadrant? The third, but that's not going to be the case. Where is negative pi over 4? 315. Do y'all agree this right here is negative pi over 4? Which is the same thing as what? So I could say this was negative 7 pi over 4. Do y'all agree with that? Now does this make more sense? So what am I going to do now? Where am I going to plot this point? The other way. Because it's a negative 4, I'm going to go across 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is where point B is. Does that make sense? Any questions? What if you did not know where negative pi over 4 was? You could add what? You could add 2 pi to figure out what it's equivalent to. Okay? So from here to here, you can add 2 pi if you don't know where it goes. I would now use this point to convert. What is the cosine of 7 pi over 4? What is the sine of 7 pi over 4? Did y'all get negative root 2, comma 2 root 2? And now this is my xy. What quadrant should our point be in? A negative positive? And is our point in the second quadrant if we were to graph it? Okay. Does that make sense? A little weird, right? Can I answer any questions? All right, turn your paper over. We are now going to go the opposite way. Tell me if you need me to slow down. Now we are going to convert rectangular to polar. And when we convert rectangular to polar, this time we are going to be given xy, and we need to convert to r theta. How do we find r theta? How do you find r? And it's going to be x squared plus y squared because we're not doing AB. The square root of x squared plus y squared. And how do we find theta? Inverse tangent of y over x. As a reminder, r squared is x squared plus y squared. And theta is the inverse tan of y over x. And right here you could have put r equals the square root. It doesn't matter. That's going to help us in a little bit. That's why I wrote it like that. Questions? All right, let's plot point C. Negative 3, 3. What quadrant should our point be in? The second. But we don't know where it's at because we don't know the polar coordinate, right? So in this case, you're going to graph at the end because you don't know, right? All right. So let's convert this. What is the square root of 18? 3 root 2. And what is the inverse tan of negative 1? What quadrant did we say we were going to be in? Quadrant 2. So since we're in quadrant 2, 3 pi over 4. Be careful. I made this mistake last period. How do I graph this? Guesstimate. 3 square roots of 2 is greater than 3. It's actually bigger than 4 as well. So don't assume that's 3 point something. All right, so just be careful. 3 to the square root of 2 is approximately 4.2. So just be careful about that. I don't think we're going to give you a bunch like that, but when you're going to 3 pi over 4, just make sure you don't plot it at 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. A little above 4 is where you should have plotted that. Like if you were to just put a dot and no letter, yeah.
What about the 2 5?
Oh, no, you don't have to label that. No, that's assumed. Yeah. All right. I would like you to do this one on your own. Go. Negative 1, negative square root of 3. What quadrant is this in? So what is the inverse tan of the square root of 3? 4 pi over 3. And plot that. have any questions? Is there anything I can clarify for you? Are we okay? Again, it's kind of new because we haven't done it this way, but it is not like, yeah, y'all have been using these. All right, the next two, we're actually going to do the same thing, but instead of converting coordinates, we're going to convert equations. So now we are going to convert polar to rectangular equations. When we are converting polar to rectangular, you only want x and y in your answer. So I'm going to give you an equation. If I want a rectangular equation, I only want x and y. So here is the first equation. R equals 4 sine of theta. How do I get rid of R and theta and get x and y? Substitute. We are going to do that. Before we do that, my suggestion is if you have a trig function, don't we know how to turn that into x and y? What is sine of theta? Do you agree sine of theta is y over r? And I'm going to bring down everything else. If I have r's on both sides, I can not cancel. I can multiply them. And what is that going to give me? What do I know about r squared? It is x squared plus y squared. Do I have only x's and y's? I'm done. Okay? Last period, somebody had told me, well, Miss Olivares, could I have changed that to the square root of x squared plus y squared? And then could I change theta to the inverse tangent of y over x? You could, but then you would have the sine of the do you want to do the sine of the inverse tan? No. So if you have a trig function, just change it to x, y, r. All right, that's one way. Now we're going to do the other way. Now let's convert rectangular to a polar equation. And in this case, in our equation, we only want r and theta. Write it down. Four xy equals 9. Don't need square. Although I get what you're saying, that would give us a square root in there. We don't need to do all that. What'd you say? What do we know about x? Think of the front page we did. What do we write? What do we know about x? It is r cos theta. What do we know about y? I do ask that if you can, please combine anything that can. So what do you notice we have? Do we only have r and theta? We're done. You're getting to this where you no longer have x and y's, you have r's and thetas, and then we're good. All right. Get out your both homework pages I gave you on Friday, please. If you were not here, they're in the binder up top. Yeah. All right. I'm going to do some odd problems with you. Really the equations, just to make sure y'all are okay with that. And then one blue sheet as well. Yep, there's a blue sheet as well. All right, let's start with 25. I'm doing with you. Again, all the odd ones I'm doing with you are going to help you with an even one that you have due on Wednesday. So, what would you do for 25? Huh? What is that? Oh, that's a good question. For 25, the problem says, in these problems, the letters x and y represent rectangular coordinates. Write each equation using the polar coordinates. So I want r and theta. Say it again. I could factor out the 2. Is that what all of y'all were thinking as well?
Yes.
If it's not, I'm going to show you something else in a second. And then what do I know about x squared plus y squared?
Equal r squared.
Did I get rid of x and y? We're done. Now, how many of you were thinking, oh, put r cosine theta and r sine theta? If you were thinking that, you could. But what happens is you ended up having it squared, and then you have it squared. So then you end up having all this. And then we factor out 2r squared, and we get cosine squared theta plus sine squared theta, which we know is. And hey, do we end up with the same answer in the end? But which way is easier? So just be aware, there are multiple ways to do this. Yeah, there's just sometimes a better way. You get me? Okay. All right, 27, I'm actually not going to do because it's exactly like the example, so y'all should be good. Let's do 29. This time, the letters r and theta represent polar coordinates. Can you write each equation in rectangular coordinates? So what would you do here on 29? Cosine is x over r. And I can multiply both sides by r. So I get r squared equals x. What do I want for my rectangular coordinates? Only x and y. Are we done? No. What do I do with r squared? Y'all, this bothers some of y'all that we have x's and da-da-da-da. Just leave it. Some of your answers are going to look crazy. Believe me. Question 30, the answer is going to be crazy. That's okay. As long as you only have x's and y's, it's fine. Leave it ugly. Yes.
Is number 29 the equation answer to 26?
No. Oh, wait. Is 29...
Like the equation for 29, the answer for 26.
Alright, last one I'm going to do with you. 31. R equals 2. What you got for me? The square root of x squared, y'all, plus y squared equals 2. If I'm being honest, did you get rid of r and theta? You're technically done. But I do like the idea of you squaring both sides, which would give you the second one's not wrong. The third one is just a better answer.
So could we technically do the second one?
Sure, it's not wrong. I might take off a point. I gotta think about that answer. Same thing, hold on, same thing right here. If you leave this like this with both r's, I'll probably take off a point if you don't simplify it to r squared. If you can simplify it a little bit. Okay? Alright. Look at your homework. You can now do all of it. I do want to let you know, 18 and 24. Do you know what the inverse tangent of 2 negative 2.1 over 0.8 is? Yeah, me neither. What are you going to have to do on 24? You have to use Desmos on that one. Make sure you're in degree mode, and it'll give you your, and make sure you're in the right quadrant. Okay? Same thing with 18. Do you know what the cosine of 182 is? Yeah, me neither. So you'll have to use Desmos for that. Okay? Make sure you're in degree mode. You have the rest of class to get started. Evens are due on Wednesday. If you have questions and you don't know, do an odd and come ask me that question.
This is not a problem.